They told me the night shift was easy. No customers, no stress. Just keep the lights on, follow the list, and don't go near the freezer after midnight. That was all the warning I got. I'm Eli Parker, 20 years old, broke, and out of options. My last job was at a car wash that shut down when winter rolled in. The rent was due, my car was dying, and the help wanted sign at Carver's grocery looked like a lifeline. Mr. Daly, the manager, was the kind of guy who looked exhausted even when he smiled. His handshake was weak, his eyes bloodshot, and his office smelled like stale coffee and ammonia. "Just need someone to cover the graveyard," he said. "It's quiet work. You'll be fine." The pay wasn't great, but I didn't care. When he handed me the laminated overnight duties list, I didn't think twice. It looked like a grocery checklist, 10 neat bullet points in faded ink. I stuffed it in my pocket, signed a few forms, and that was that. When I showed up for my first night, the parking lot was almost empty. The store sat off the main road, half swallowed by trees, its neon sign flickering like a dying heartbeat. Inside, the air was too cold for comfort. The night crew, 4 of them, were already clocking out. They didn't say much, just exchanged glances, hurried through the doors, and mumbled things I couldn't quite catch. One of them, a tall guy with a mop bucket, paused as he passed me. "You're the new kid?" "Yeah," I said. He nodded once, uneasy. "Don't skip the alarms. Trust me." I opened my mouth to ask what that meant, but he was already out the door. Then it was just me. The silence hit hard. Not the kind you get at home. This was mechanical silence. A low, endless hum from the lights and refrigeration units that felt almost alive, like the building was breathing around me. I stood there, staring down the long aisles. Every row stretched too far, vanishing into shadows. I felt like I'd stepped into some place that didn't want to be awake. I took out the list. Overnight duties. Carver's grocery. Sweep every aisle by 10:30 p.m. Turn the open sign off at 11 sharp. Restock aisle 5, but never touch the bottom shelf. If you hear running water, check the produce sink, and don't look in the drain. Count the register drawers, but leave drawer number 3 closed. At midnight, wipe down the meat counter, even if it looks clean. Keep the back freezer door locked. If it's open, do not go inside. If the lights flicker, hum. It helps. If you see a child in the aisles, ask them what time it is, then walk away. Never answer the phone after 2 a.m. I read it twice, then laughed out loud. It had to be a joke, some initiation thing, a creepy list to freak out the new hire. Still, something about it didn't sit right. The lamination was old, corners frayed, smudged with fingerprints that weren't mine. I went behind the counter, flipped the register light on, and tried to shake the feeling that the shelves were watching me back. At 10:25, I grabbed a broom and started sweeping. Dust and paper scraps whispered across the tiles. Somewhere deep in the store, a single fluorescent bulb flickered. Just once. I looked up at it. It stopped. I exhaled, forced a laugh, and kept sweeping. But when I turned back toward the entrance, the open sign was already dark. I hadn't touched it yet. By 11 p.m., I'd convinced myself that the list was nothing more than a prank, a weird grocery store version of hazing. I'd even texted a friend joking that I was haunted by produce. He didn't reply. Still, I followed the list, just in case. The aisles felt longer than they had when I started. I don't mean that figuratively. They looked longer. Shelf after shelf stretched deeper than before, fading into soft shadow near the back. Every sound echoed differently, like the store was slowly expanding. I reached aisle 5, the one I was supposed to restock. only 3 cans on the bottom shelf. The rest were perfectly neat. But the air there felt damp. The kind of humidity that doesn't belong in a refrigerated building. When I knelt down, my hand brushed against something sticky. I pulled back and saw a smear of dark red under my fingertips. Not paint. Too thin for that. I blinked, looked again. It was gone. Just dust. I didn't touch the bottom shelf. Instead, I crossed it off the list and kept moving. The sound of running water reached me next. A soft trickle at first, then louder. I followed it through the aisles until I reached the produce section. The overhead light buzzed, throwing weak halos over piles of apples and celery that looked almost waxy in the pale glow. The sink faucet was dry, no water running, but the sound was still there, coming from the drain. It didn't sound like pipes, it sounded wetly alive. A slurping inhale, a rhythm like someone gasping underwater. I bent down and felt a breath of air rise from the drain, cold and damp. The smell hit me. Earthy. Rotten. Rule number 4 flashed in my head. Don't look in the drain. I backed away fast, tossed a rag over the sink, and the sound stopped instantly. No fading out, just silence. The lights overhead flickered once, twice. I froze. Then remembered another rule. If the lights flicker, hum. It helps. Feeling stupid, I hummed. Something low, tuneless. The flickering stopped. I laughed to myself, a nervous, high-pitched sound that didn't feel like mine. Back at the counter, I started counting the registers like rule number 5 said. The first 2 drawers opened fine, clean, balanced, full of petty cash. But drawer number 3 was padlocked shut. Old lock, rusted edges. I tugged it once, then froze when I felt it rattle back. Not from my pull, from inside. A sharp knock from somewhere behind me made me drop my keys. It came from the meat counter. Rule number 6. Wipe it down at midnight, even if it looks clean. It wasn't midnight yet. I checked my phone, 11:46. But the air back there was freezing cold, like someone left the door to a walk-in freezer open. My breath fogged. The counter gleamed under the fluorescent lights, spotless, stainless steel. But when I ran a towel over it anyway, the fabric came away bright red. I stared, heartbeat pounding in my throat. The counter stayed perfectly clean. The towel dripped color that shouldn't have been there. I threw it in the trash, slammed the lid, and stepped back. The light above the meat section flickered again, once, long enough to throw the shadows across the wall into strange, stretched shapes. One of them didn't vanish when the light steadied. It stood still, right where the freezer door was. I turned my head slowly, every nerve on fire. The back freezer door was trembling, just barely, like something was breathing against it from the other side. A chain lock hung through the handle, the padlock glinting in the dim light. I could hear faint scraping, like nails against metal. Rule number 7. Keep the back freezer door locked. If it's open, do not go inside. I whispered, not open, still locked. The scraping stopped. The store fell silent again, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the air around me was listening. I checked my phone again. 12:01 a.m. Midnight. And then, as if on cue, the store phone at the front counter started ringing. The phone's ring cut through the silence like a scream. Not one of those old, cheerful ding-ding tones either. This was shrill, electric, the kind of sound that drills into your teeth. I stared at it from across the store. No one should be calling at midnight. I remembered rule number 10. Never answer the phone after 2 a.m. But it was still early, 12:01. I told myself it was fine. Maybe Daly forgot something. Maybe it was a delivery mix-up. Anything normal. The ringing stopped before I could pick it up. Then started again. Longer this time. When I lifted the receiver, the line hissed like static on an old TV. No voice, no sound. Just a faint breathing. I whispered, "Hello?" The breathing paused, then repeated my name. Eli. The voice was soft, wet, and close, like someone whispering through cloth. I dropped the phone. It hit the counter hard, the receiver swinging by its cord like a pendulum. The line stayed open, breathing still coming through. I reached out to hang it up, but the line went dead. I backed away slowly, heart hammering, trying to remember which rule came next. I was halfway through my shift, right? If I could just keep following the list, I'd make it till sunrise. That's when I saw her. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, a small figure standing halfway down aisle 7, framed between the shelves. Tiny. Still, the fluorescent light above her flickered once, revealing bare feet and a nightgown. A little girl. She wasn't moving, just staring at me. Rule number 9 burned through my head like a flare. If you see a child in the aisles, ask them what time it is, then walk away. My throat went dry. "Hey, kid," I managed, voice cracking. What time is it?" She tilted her head, slow and unnatural, like a puppet whose strings were being tugged too hard. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. Then the lights above her flickered twice, and she was gone. No footsteps, no sound, just empty tile. The hair on my neck stood on end. Something about the air shifted, heavier, colder. The buzzing of the lights dimmed until I could hear my own pulse, and underneath it, faint music, like a music box winding somewhere deep in the store. I stepped toward the aisle, forcing my shaking legs to move. The shelves seemed to lean inward, pressing close around me. At the far end of the aisle, something tapped against the metal. Once. Twice. I reached the turn at the end, and the sound stopped. That's when the store phone rang again. I turned toward the counter. The light above it had gone out, plunging that half of the store into shadow. The caller ID screen flickered, numbers warping across it until they settled into a single phrase. Drawer number 3. The phone kept ringing. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Then the lights along the meat counter buzzed to life one by one, stretching toward the freezer door like runway lights. I could see my reflection in the glass, pale, shaking, eyes wide. And behind me, something else. A shape, too tall, standing at the end of the aisle, motionless. The phone went silent. Then came a faint knocking sound from inside the walls, rhythmic, pulsing, like the heartbeat of the building itself. I whispered, "You're not real." And the freezer door groaned. The metal latch trembled. Frost spread across the tiles, crawling toward my shoes like veins. I ran to the back room, slamming the door behind me. The noise stopped again. Complete stillness. Only the hum of the refrigerators, slow, steady, and somehow comforting, remained. But on the break room monitor, the one that looped security footage from the aisles, I saw the little girl again, standing in front of the freezer, smiling at the camera. The break room lights flickered once, humming in rhythm with my pulse. I couldn't look away from the monitor. The little girl stood perfectly still, her pale face filling the camera lens now. Her mouth didn't move, but the speakers hissed, faint static that formed into a sound halfway between laughter and breathing. I reached to unplug the monitor. The moment my fingers brushed the cable, the image froze. Her eyes turned directly toward me. Then the screen went black. I stumbled back, hit the table, and the laminated overnight duties list slid to the floor. When I bent to grab it, I noticed something new. A faint handwritten note in pencil beneath rule number 10. The words were smudged, but I could still read them. If she smiles, you're already late. I didn't write that. My body was trembling now. I needed air. I needed to leave, but when I opened the break room door, the store wasn't the same. The aisles were wrong. They'd shifted. Where there should have been 5 straight rows, there were now 3 curving toward the back of the store, all leading to the freezer door. The lights buzzed overhead, one by one, forcing me to walk toward it whether I wanted to or not. Every time I tried to turn away, the next aisle bent back toward that silver rectangle of steel. Frost misted out from beneath the frame. It pooled across the tile, curling around my feet like fog. The air smelled metallic, sharp, like pennies in the back of your throat. I whispered to myself, "Don't open it. Don't open it." But the door wasn't locked anymore. The chain that had been looped through the handle lay coiled on the ground, rust flakes scattered like dried blood. I knelt, touched it. It was warm. Behind me, something clicked. I turned, expecting to see a person, but instead, every light in the store shut off at once. Pitch black. For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of my breathing. Then a soft, rhythmic knocking began from the freezer door. 1, 2, 3. I stumbled backward, flashlight shaking in my hand. The beam caught movement, quick, skittering. Shadows rippled along the ceiling, then vanished. When I turned the light toward the floor, I saw footprints, bare, wet ones leading away from the freezer. Small, child-sized. They trailed past me across the tiles, down one of the aisles, toward the front counter. I followed against every bit of instinct I had left. The prints stopped right in front of the register. Drawer number 3. The padlock was gone. The drawer was open. Inside sat a photograph. Old, discolored. It showed the store's night crew, 5 people lined up behind the meat counter smiling. The freezer door was open behind them. 4 of the faces I didn't recognize. The 5th was unmistakable. The little girl. She was standing where the freezer opened, her hand resting on the doorframe, the same faint grin plastered across her face. I flipped the photo over. Written in blue pen on the back, Employee of the Month, March 1998. The temperature dropped so fast my breath turned to vapor. I heard the freezer door behind me creak open again, slow and steady. The reflection in the register glass showed a tall shape stepping through the mist. Not a child. Not anymore. Limbs too long, head brushing the ceiling, eyes gleaming white through the frost. I bolted for the back room. The aisles twisted, stretching further with every step, like the store itself didn't want me to leave. The walls groaned and shelves bent inward, narrowing the path until I had to squeeze through. Somewhere between the aisles, a voice whispered, "You forgot the counter, Eli." My flashlight blinked out. I hit it against my palm, and when the beam came back, my hands were red again. Not blood this time, not exactly. It was too dark, too thick. The smell was chemical, sharp, sweet. I looked around. The meat counter gleamed ahead of me, perfect and clean except for one thing. A single handprint smeared across the stainless steel, dripping slowly toward the floor. The same size as mine. The clock above the counter read 3:09 a.m. I stumbled backward from the counter, the red on my hands already drying into tacky streaks. My breath came fast, fogging the air. Somewhere in the building, something heavy shifted. The floor groaned. The freezer door was wide open now, a pale light spilling out, so bright it made the aisles glow. The temperature dropped with every step I took. My phone buzzed in my pocket, screen lighting up. 3:10 a.m. I was almost through the shift. Almost. The laminated list lay where I'd dropped it earlier, caught under the corner of a shelf. I snatched it up, desperate for direction, for anything that would tell me what to do next. My fingers trembled as I read it again, line by line. At the bottom, under the final printed rule, 10. Never answer the phone after 2 a.m. New writing had appeared. Not pencil this time. Fresh ink. 11. Clock out before 3:13 a.m. The letters bled slightly, like they'd been written in something wet. My pulse spiked. I was only a few minutes away. If I could make it to the punch clock and get out before 3:13, maybe... A faint click echoed from the front counter. The register drawer slid open by itself. Drawer number 3. The photo I'd found earlier was gone. In its place sat a punch card, blank except for my name scrawled at the top in messy handwriting. ELIPARKER. My time was already stamped. 3:12. I hadn't even clocked out yet. Behind me, the air pressure changed. The sound in the store, that endless hum I'd gotten used to, stopped. Completely. Then came the knock. 3 slow, hollow thuds from the freezer door. The light pouring out was dimmer now, pulsing faintly with each knock like a dying heartbeat. Frost crept across the tiles in jagged tendrils. I backed toward the exit, whispering, "Just one more minute. One more." A voice whispered from the doorway. Soft. Familiar. "You're late." I spun. The little girl stood there again. Same nightgown, same bare feet, except her face wasn't blank anymore. Her smile stretched ear to ear, too wide for her face. Her eyes were hollow sockets leaking thin trails of frost. The clock on the wall flipped to 3:13 a.m. Every light in the building went out. The cold hit me like a wave. I could feel it spreading under my skin, crawling up my arms, slowing everything down. My phone light flickered. One last pulse of brightness before the screen cracked, frozen from the inside out. Through the fogged glass of the freezer, something moved, a dark silhouette pressing against the window. It was tall, wrong, limbs stretching like they didn't know where they were supposed to end. The door swung open. The thing stepped out. Not fast, not violent, just deliberate. The air warped around it, making the aisles bend like reflections in water. Wherever it stepped, the frost deepened, curling upward like reaching hands. I tried to run, but the floor pulled at my boots like glue. The cold sank into the bones. My breath froze mid-air and shattered when I moved. The creature leaned close. Its face flickered between shapes. The little girl, the tall night crewman, Mr. Daly, then me. Over and over. "You forgot the counter," it whispered again, voice echoing from inside my head. Everything went white. When I woke, it was daylight. The morning crew was outside unlocking the doors. The store looked normal, clean, too clean. No frost, no footprints, no blood. The clock on the wall read 6:59 a.m. My clothes were dry, hands clean, but when I checked the time card machine, my card was gone. A new one sat in the tray. Parker, E. Hire date? Today. The laminated list was tacked to the wall beside it. Freshly printed, crisp edges. The handwriting at the bottom, still wet. 11. Clock out before 3:13 a.m. And under that, a 12th line, faint but legible. 12. Don't forget to train the next one. I still don't know what happened in that store. Maybe I dreamed it. Maybe I didn't make it out at all. But every night since then, I've heard that same phone ringing, somewhere far off. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I swear I can smell the freezer air. If you ever find yourself working the night shift, check the list twice. Thanks for watching Campfire Horror Stories. If you enjoyed this tale, like, comment, and subscribe. It helps new listeners find their way to the fire. And remember, not every job is worth surviving the night for.